You don't have any Stephen King?
You've got the shinin.
I mean shiny.
Shh! You wanna get sued?
It's just your fate. You're that geeky Stephen King kid. There's one of you in every school.
Okay, that's him, that's Cujo, that's Cujo.
I was thinking along the lines of no TV and no beer make Homer something.
Oh, crazy.
Don't mind if I do!
Hello and welcome to Tower Junkies, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. Tower Junkies is a podcast celebrating the work of Stephen King, hosted by two lifelong constant readers. We do non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of King's published work, and take a critical look at his film and television adaptations as well. We also discuss the latest King news and check in with each other on our ongoing King obsessions. It's the podcast where all things serve the King. You can find more of our work at TowerJunkiesPod.com. You can also like the Facebook page at Facebook.com/TowerJunkiesPod, and follow us on Twitter and every other level of social media at Tower Junkies Pod. And if you'd like to support what we do here, you can become a patron at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for a ridiculous amount of bonus content spread across all of obsessiveviewer.com's various podcasts. Again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. At $1 per month, you get access to B-roll recordings of us just kind of shooting the shit and talking about random topics. At the $2 level, you get that, plus TV and book reaction reviews. I did a full 5 episodes on Billy Summers, totaling 4 hours. And I'm also doing episode recaps or episode reaction reviews of Chapelwaite. And later this month, I'll be doing Foundation on Apple TV Plus. So that's at the $2 level. $5 gets you that plus commentary tracks, and at $10 gets you all of that plus early access. Having said all that, again, that's at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm one of your hosts, Matt Hurt, and joining me today, as usual, is Tiny.
Hey, girl.
How's it going, Tiny? I'm a boy.
You are.
Yes.
I would have gone with man, but okay.
Well, obviously you don't know me that well then.
Debatable.
Yes. Yeah. So, how's it going?
It's going good, buddy.
Good. So today on the podcast, we're going to be reviewing Stephen King's latest novel. That's right. We're going to be covering something recent, and in a timely manner. We're going to be reviewing Billy Summers. Very excited to talk to you about this, Tiny, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it and to talk to you about it.
Totes.
Yeah. But before we do all that, we do have some Stephen King news and check-ins. Mm-hmm. Before we do that, do you have anything to say? Anything for the podcast outside of news and check-ins?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I feel like phrasing it that way makes it seem like I'm hinting at something, like it's actually my birthday.
Yeah, right.
It's not.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
But yeah. We did, as of like a week and a half ago, I think, we did begin our journey into year 5 of Tower Junkies podcast. So I think the anniversary of when we started is like August 20th. So it is September 1st, so we're recording this. And I erroneously mentioned that we've been doing this for 5 years in a previous episode. We've been doing it for 4 years. So here's to a couple weeks more.
Nice.
So let's get into some Stephen King news and check-ins. Do you want to do that?
Let's do it.
All right. So there are various news items that I want to bring up. And first, it pertains to the book that we're reviewing tonight, actually. There's an article on kansascity.com called, that the title of the article is Stephen King's new book features Kansas restaurant. Owner says he got something wrong. Which it's a charming, like, local news thing. It's something kind of funny. So I'm just gonna put a link in the show notes, of course. But let's see. So okay, quote from a resident of Protection, Kansas is a couple of the characters from Billy Summers, stop for the night in the little town of Protection, Kansas, because it's almost halfway to where they're going, but also because they both like the idea of staying at a place called the Protection Motel. Yeah, okay, that wasn't the quote I was looking for. So Protection is a real place, a town of 340 people in western Kansas. And on Broadway, the town's main street, you'll find Don's place in the Protection Motel, just a short walk away from each other. So in the story, I won't give away any details or anything, but in the book, basically it says... they name... King references Don's Cafe or Don's Place or whatever, and says that it's the kind of place that only, the actual quote is, they eat at Don's Place, which is just about the only place in Protection that where people come to feed or whatever. The menu consists mostly of burgers and corn dogs. And so, like, the whole point of this article is that the owner and the townspeople are like, no, there's a lot more stuff. It's like there's steak and
Country fried steak.
Fried
chicken.
Yeah. And I thought that was kind of cute and quaint, but
Totally.
But the owner did go on to say that he doesn't believe that Stephen King has ever passed through, but if he ever does, his meal's on the house.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I thought that was kind of charming.
Totally.
Yeah. And then we've got a twofer for news for this next one, but a new adaptation of Salem's Lot is going to be produced by New Line Cinema, and there's been some casting news. Tiny, have you seen this?
I have.
Okay.
I didn't recognize the name.
For the lead,
yeah, Lewis Pullman.
Yeah. He is Bill Pullman's son.
Right.
That is all that I
didn't look him up. Has he been in other stuff? Do you know?
I think so, but I don't know offhand.
Nothing notable, probably.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, but I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was in Bad Times at the El Royale, but I don't remember him. He was also in The Strangers Pray at Night. But yeah, so that's interesting. I'm intrigued. He's going to play Ben Mears.
Yep.
And then some other casting news was announced just a couple days ago. 3 people were added to the cast. Mackenzie Lee is going to play Susan Norton. And Matt Burke is going to be played by Bill Camp, which I'm very, very intrigued about.
Love Bill Camp.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really interesting to see someone who appears to be as young as Lewis Pullman is play off against Bill Camp.
And Bill Camp is a Stephen King alum.
Ah, yes.
He was in The Outsider.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Spencer Treat Clark is going to be playing a character.
I can't remember who he's playing.
Is he going to play Mike Ryerson?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Mike Ryerson. So that's interesting. I'm curious. I don't know Mackenzie Lee from anything, but Bill Camp and Spencer Treat Clark I've seen, so I'm interested.
Do you know what service like Salem's Lot's going to be on?
I don't. All I know is that New Line is producing it, so it might be a theatrical thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice. I thought it was a series, or is it a movie?
Oh no, it's a movie.
Oh, it's a movie. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was a series.
No. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And then I thought I had 2 other things, but I don't know. But I'll just say that I haven't checked this out yet, but as of today, Strawberry Spring, the podcast, based on a short story by Stephen King, which we referenced last time on the podcast, released its first 2 episodes today. So I haven't listened to them yet, but it's out there. So
cool.
Yeah. Is that on your radar after hearing the trailer last time?
Definitely on my radar. Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, me too. It's a Stephen King thing, so
yeah.
Cool. I think that's all I have for news. I swear I had something else, but I don't know.
That's all you shared with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious about your check-ins, though.
Ah, yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to throw you under the bus. First, why don't you hit me with your check-in?
Son of a bitch. Yeah, I don't have any other than I finished Billy Summers.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
Awesome. Cool.
And I finished it in a timely manner, too. Like,
yeah.
It was less than 2 weeks. I mean, It's not a long book, but it's
No.
decently length.
Yeah, it's comparable in length to The Institute.
Yeah,
So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to Stephen King check-ins. For me, I have a few things. First, shout out to fellow podcast Stephen King podcast that we've referenced a lot in the past. The Year of Underrated Stephen King, a fantastic podcast that Kim C, the host over there, invited me on to that show to talk about King and a little bit about Dark Tower and stuff. I had a blast. I recorded with her last night, and it was super fun. And that episode should be out shortly. But in the meantime, I highly recommend you guys subscribe to it and listen to some of the other available episodes because it's a fantastic podcast. And then listen to mine. And let me know what you guys think.
Cool.
Yeah, Tiny, are you looking forward to listening to that episode?
Totally.
Okay, good. We already went over this in Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, I am doing episode reactions to, which I already said in this episode, to Chapelwaite, which is on Epics. Tiny, do you have any interest in Chapelwaite?
No.
Okay.
I don't even really know what it is.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So Chapelwaite, for those who don't know, is an Epix original series. Epix is apparently a streaming platform. I honestly was not going to check out Chapelwaite, to be honest. And that is because A, I didn't have a subscription to Epix. B, it is an adaptation of the short story Jerusalem's Lot, which is a kind of vague prequel to Salem's Lot. And it's the first short story in Night Shift, and it's an interesting enough short story, but it's like set in 1850. It's this guy who's inherited this mansion called Chapelwaite, and he finds like all of these crazy stuff going on. And it's engaging, it's frightening, it's scary and everything, and it's crazy, but I'm just like, I don't like, it doesn't feel like it should be like a TV show or an adaptation, especially not like a TV show because there's not much there. And then in my head, I'm like, eventually they have to tie it to Salem's Lot in some way. And like, I kept thinking like, is it even able to, like, are they allowed to use the word Salem's Lot? So like all of that was in my head, and I was just like, I don't know if I want to commit myself to this. And then I went on Amazon Prime and I saw that Epix was available as an add-on subscription. They had a promotion to add it as a subscription for 99 cents per month for a year. So I'm like, okay, sure. So I got the subscription and I watched the first episode, and it's really pretty good. It stars Adrian Brody. He is the lead actor, obviously. And it's really interesting. It's a really good like period drama suspense story. And as such, I am recording my reviews of each episode and posting them on Patreon at the $2 level. Cool. So yeah, check that out for episode by episode reactions and everything.
Nifty.
So yeah, and then my these next two check-ins are going to be very brief, just the briefest of all check-ins. I have started rereading Night Shift for a secret project that I'm doing for Patreon, and I'm enjoying it quite a bit. And yeah, it's really fun.
Cool.
And I also, on a very big whim, just decided to re-listen to Under the Dome. And man, that story is so good. I'm only about 5 hours into it. And it's so much fun. It's so good.
That's another one I'm going to have to revisit soon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I feel like we should do something special for that. Maybe break it up into parts.
Yeah, because it's so long.
Yeah, like we did with The Stand.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that. Whenever you have the inkling to do that, we'll do that, and then we'll go through episode by episode for the 3 seasons that the show was on.
Good God.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
Yeah, no way.
Yeah. Oh,
I can't believe it had 3 seasons.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Yeah, so that's all I got for check-ins. Anything else in news and check-ins, Tiny, that you want to share?
Nope.
Okay, I did forget a check-in.
I was gonna say.
Yes.
was curious about those books over
Yes,
there.
I set aside some books. So, I was listening to another Stephen King podcast, and they had on a guest by the name of Bev Vincent, who famously he wrote The Road to the Dark Tower and The Dark Tower Companion, and he also edited Flight or Fright, the collection of short stories of aviation varieties that came out a couple years ago with Stephen King. And so I was listening to him kind of geek out about the Dark Tower and the process of writing The Road to the Dark Tower and the Dark Tower Companion. And so I thought, I had been thinking that on this podcast, we initially started as a Dark Tower podcast, and then we just transitioned to a general Stephen King podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely want us to cover the Dark Tower and cover it properly, in the sense that I want us to go book by book, section by section, deep dive into the story, the lore, the backstory, the everything. So in order to do that, I'm planning on us doing that like sometime next year. It's not going to be like suddenly like, oh, we're on the Gunslinger part 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be like, we're going to plan it out and, really tackle it with the respect and fervor that it deserves, But, in the lead up to that, I got a hankering for some more Dark Tower stuff. So I finally bought, I can't believe I didn't already own them, but I bought The Road to the Dark Tower and The Dark Tower Companion, both by Bev Vincent.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bunch of essays and stuff. I'm very excited to dig into these. And so I'm going to read these front to back and everything.
I wasn't familiar with those.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think if I remember that episode of that podcast correctly, he said that it was a really interesting anecdote, because he said that he had written to Steve, and something about, because he was working on the Road to the Dark Tower, like the actual manuscript and everything. And I guess he was going to take it to Scribner. But they were like, no, we actually already have Robin Firth's Dark Tower Concordance, and that might be confusing or whatever. So then he went to a different publisher, but he had written to Stephen King and was like, hey, I know you're working on the last 3 books. Can I go ahead and get the manuscripts so I can finish my book? And like, it's like, when listening to him tell the story, I was just like, I can't imagine, because like just one day they showed up on his doorstep and he had the manuscripts for the last 3 Dark Tower books.
Damn.
Before, like, he read them before anyone else.
Huh.
And I can't imagine having that much power.
Right.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
Cool.
But I also have my old, worn, kind of beaten up copy of The Dark Tower, The Complete Concordance, revised and updated by Robin Firth.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my homework. I'm going to be reading all 3 of these books.
Nice.
And the entire time, I'm like 200 pages into the Concordance. But the entire time, I am going to be fighting this desire to just load up the Dark Tower books and listen to them from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for that. Next year, we are going to do the Dark Tower. Tiny, can I get a verbal signature from you?
I'm gonna have to consult with my lawyers before.
Okay.
I keyed. Yes,
okay, good,
yes,
good.
totally.
Yes, and just so that we have a clean copy on this. Tiny, do you commit to us covering the Dark Tower series and naming me as a beneficiary on every insurance policy you have?
I do.
Okay.
It's time.
Nice. Okay. Anyway, so, yeah. Anyway, that's our pledge. I don't know. That's all next year.
Yeah.
So, I think we're ready to dive in, aren't you?
Yeesh.
Tiny? Yes.
Yeesh.
Okay, so we are going to be covering Billy Summers this evening. And for those who don't know, the plot synopsis, courtesy of StephenKing.com for Billy Summers is a man in a room with a gun. He's a killer for hire and the best in the business, but he'll do the job only if the target is a truly bad guy. And now Billy wants out, but first there is one last hit. Billy is among the best snipers in the world, a decorated Iraq war vet, a Houdini when it comes to vanishing after the job is done. So what could possibly go wrong? Aside from the host of a podcast voice cracking prepubescently on a recording? This book was published on August 3rd, 2021, from Scribner. And, Tiny. We are obviously going to do a non-spoiler and then a spoiler review for Billy Summers. But before we do that, Tiny, what was your knowledge going into this? What is your history with this novel? That just came out less than a month ago?
Not much history. I really didn't even remember what it was about.
Nice.
I know I read a synopsis when it was announced, like over a year ago or whatever, and I just kind of forgot mostly about it. Like I think I basically just remembered that it involved a hitman, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
And yeah, I just don't really have any history with it because it's so new.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Same here. My history of it was that it was announced. I was excited. It came up for pre-order on Audible and Amazon, and I pre-ordered it on Audible and Amazon, and got them the day it came out.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you collect physical King books?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. I might start. I guess it's a conversation for another time, but I'm very strongly considering getting rid of my physical like DVD collection.
Oh, interesting.
And just kind of like
blame you.
Yeah, kind of like having a big Stephen King collection, like a physical collection, kind of like you do and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna go into our non-spoiler review of Billy Summers. So Tiny. Another plug for Patreon at the $2 level. I did 5 episodes for 4 hours total, talking exhaustively about Billy Summers. So Tiny, your turn. How'd you feel? Non-spoilers about Billy Summers, and how'd you find it?
Yeah, it was good.
Nice.
No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
I ended up really liking this a lot.
Nice.
It was, I think. It was really fun because it has this direction that it takes for, a good third of the book, and then there's a significant shift, and a shift in the book, and I was so compelled by it because you're obviously sitting there, if you're reading the physical copy or you're listening to the audio file, you're sitting there and you're like, well, I'm only 5 hours into this thing, or 6 hours, or I'm only 150 pages into this thing. And this really significant event is happening that I thought was going to be like the climax of the story.
Right.
And we're already here. It's like, gosh, what's going to happen after this? Like, what's the bulk of this?
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And so that was really compelling, and it kept me on the edge of my seat. And when it went through the shift, it was still just as compelling. Like it didn't lose any luster. It wasn't, it didn't detract from the overall story. Still cared about the characters. It was a really cool transition to weave into a story that like you wouldn't think something like that would work, but it totally did.
Yeah.
And it turned out being really good. My only real issue with it is the fact that the story itself is pretty similar to another story that I'm also a huge fan of, and like I can't write it off. I can't fully ignore it.
Okay.
It's not a copycat story or anything, but it's so much like Leon the Professional.
Oh, interesting.
Which is a movie that I like love.
Yeah.
It's so much like that. It's not a rip-off or anything.
Right.
But
that's interesting.
It's very similar.
Huh. Well, that's really interesting because I did not make that connection. I made the connection to another movie that I'll talk about in spoilers. But that's really interesting. And what I found, what I found kind of, maybe not distracting, but I found kind of a little bit of an obstacle for me in the story, in the beginning part, is that it felt to me reminiscent of a couple of Stephen King stories themselves. So like this whole, like the basic premise in this first third of the book is that Billy Summers is a hitman who is hired to gun down a person, and he has like a month or so, or he has a lot of lead time before the hit. So he needs to like become a part of this like little community and like work and have like do his cover story and everything. And like the whole time I'm listening to it, I'm like, this is 11/22/63. Like this is Jake Epping going to 1958 and living in Jody and working toward like preventing the JFK assassination.
Huh.
And it's even similar because it's like, I mean, he's a gunman who's like in an elevated position that's going to take a shot outside. Like it's just very similar. I was like, okay, this isn't as fresh as I would have liked it to be.
I didn't draw that connection at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and then the other side of that is, it is all, I'll dance around spoilers and everything, but it's all centered around a perp walk or I don't know if he's going there for an arraignment or, yeah. And I'm like, The Outsider.
Yeah.
Like the first third of The Outsider is leading up to an arraignment.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm just like, this is like too similar. This is too similar.
Right.
And everything. But then once the plot advances and we get introduced to a new situation and a new character even, that's when the book really gelled for me and really got into a point where I, like the entire book, I felt like it was unpredictable. Like I didn't know where it was leading, and I thought that it was just very brisk, very well paced. And like once it gets going, I felt like it was really, really going and really, really thrilling and fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I was also the main character, Billy Summers. He was a great character, really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Don't have complaints, but I think some of the backstory, which normally I would love that, absolutely love that, just was a bit disconnected for me.
Interesting.
Because I mean, from a format standpoint, I'm all for that. I think it informs, the current actions of the character so well. Whenever that's used, I love flashbacks, like in Lost and stuff. Like that's really what it made me think of, and I love that stuff normally. But for whatever reason, like especially his when Billy was talking about like his military service, that stuff. I know it was good. It wasn't that it was bad. It just took us out of what was going on in real time, and like and again, it's not bad writing, not even close to bad writing. It's just I used to feel that way with Lost sometimes. It was like, okay, I want to know what's going to happen next. Like don't take me back. Let's keep going, And I don't know. I guess it wasn't even used too much either. He didn't really spend a ton of time on it. Yeah. Like I mean, of a 16-hour book, he probably only spent like maybe an hour and a half on his backstory, like flashback type stuff like that, if that. But I don't know, for whatever reason, there was a couple times where I was just like, I don't really care about Lollapalooza. Like, I want to move on.
Right.
Like, let's get to the next part of the story. But
yeah, it's interesting. I didn't have a problem with that. Like, and I don't, and it sounds like you didn't necessarily have a problem with it. You just weren't as invested in it.
It was just a flow thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even saying it was bad.
Right.
It was just my reaction to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with me, I was more just taken with the idea of how King developed that backstory, or how he presented it, because the book, is that a spoiler? I don't think it's a spoiler. But basically, part of Billy's cover is that he is a writer, and he's writing his first book on an advance from an agency or whatever, or from a publisher. So he's like, the act of writing is he's writing, like he himself is just for himself writing this autobiographical story about his past and his military career and everything. And I just thought that when you look at it, when you examine like this type of storytelling in Billy Summers versus, say, Misery, which is a top 5 favorite Stephen King book, but those passages in Misery where it's Paul writing Misery's Return, and it's like chapters of just this romance novel that doesn't really connect with it or anything. That loses me just a little bit in that. But with Billy Summers, it's in the way that he changes like his tone to write as the dumb Billy persona, and how that it's almost like a Flowers for Algernon kind of thing. Where he eventually like gets to a point where he can write more like honestly in his more honest voice. But just the way that King utilizes that format throughout the book, I thought was was bordering on brilliant for me, because I thought that was just a very interesting and engaging vessel to deliver character backstory to us. So I was into it.
Yeah, and it was good because I feel like Billy's the current day Billy was so guarded, and he was very he seemed to be like a very withdrawn, and then like a kind of a soft-spoken, kind of simple guy, and honestly just like not that interesting,
right?
If I'm being honest. But I think all those things about when he was a kid, and then growing up as a teenager, his military service, that stuff was all gave him a lot more layers, and so it was definitely creatively a good idea. Just again, just a bit of a flow issue for me.
I get that. Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't really pertain to the present day plot like at all. Like there were a couple like little correlations I could draw, but it was mostly just character stuff, but which I was a fan of. Yeah. As the story progresses, there are certain things we'll talk about in spoilers and everything, but kind of on the whole, how did you feel about the tone of it in terms of it being a hitman's last job story? How do you think it stacks up as a thriller story? Because there's very little, if any, horror element in this story. Yeah.
I mean, it's not... I guess it's kind of formulaic in that regard, as like a thriller hitman's last job thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's really just mostly a jumping off point for the bulk of the story, or for the the big part of the story. I'm fine with it. Again, it was compelling. It just the whole premise of him, installing him months before, have him blend in with the crowd and make friends, and put forth this whole persona for this job was clever in and of itself, and just a hitman type story was compelling, and I was all on board. I was patiently waiting to see what happened next. It was really compelling. I liked all that. But it wasn't like super original or anything, and that wasn't a strength of the story, or it wasn't the most prevalent strength of the story anyways.
Okay.
There's so many other things that jumped out. So many other parts of the story are what I'm going to remember, as opposed to the details of the job, if you will.
Yeah.
The procedural crime type thing. That stuff was all fine and fun and everything. It's kind of funny to think of Stephen King writing a story like that.
Yeah.
But of course he puts his own spin on it. And I think the bulk of the story and the more enjoyable parts of the story are the other parts. So
I totally get that. And while wading through spoilers, because this happens like at the halfway point of the book, but which may be a spoiler, but I'm sorry. But how'd you feel about the character of Alice? And we'll talk more in depth about her and her role in the story in spoilers, but in kind of non-spoilers, how'd you feel about that character?
Yeah, she was written so well. I think what's so interesting about her is that I feel like, obviously I have no real world experience with this or any kind of grounding in this, but the delicacy of writing her as a survivor of an assault, a sexual assault, was really interesting. The way he balanced that with there's so many moments where he shows her like her jovial youth, it's kind of hard to describe it without going into spoilers, but like where she's interacting with certain characters and she's being silly. It feels like she's a teenage girl again.
Yeah.
And she's being silly and flippant and funny. But that's a stark contrast with some of the, her coming to terms with what happened to her, and also the way that she starts to feel about Billy and stuff like that. It's interesting the peaks and valleys that she goes through in that regards, or I guess I don't know, right brain, left brain, or like a victim who's kind of taking back control of her life. That's one of the coolest parts is she's so much a victim very early on. Yeah. But she very quickly sees her situation as a way to take, at least that's how I interpret it, as a way of her to like take back control of her life. Because someone forced her to do something. And, I guess when something like that happens, I guess it's easy for a person to feel very lost. Yeah. And just completely out of control of their life and just going on a spiral, right? But she dives into her situation as this kind of outlaw kind of thing, even though she hasn't done anything wrong. Right. It's an interesting, very interesting path for her to take. And I thought the way King set it all up was really, again, just really compelling and great character work. Yeah. And so delicate the way that he brings about the way that he develops the relationship between Billy and Alice. And like there were moments where I had concerns about where it was leading and like how it was going to go. And I was worried that is he going to leave certain aspects of one of the characters by the wayside? And I'll talk more in spoilers, but overall it was a very satisfying character arc and really cool duo with a lot of heart and just delicacy surrounding it, given their circumstances. Yep. I found that to be really engaging and compelling. Totally. Yeah. I think we would be remiss if in non-spoilers we didn't mention Paul Sparks. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. As the narrator of this. Yes. This is one of my top 5 favorite performances of all time. Oh, same here. When it comes to audiobooks. He was so good. He's amazing. He really is. And it's funny because his voice for Billy was so, for lack of a better word, was boring. Yeah, very he had such a dry, completely nondescript, nothing, no hint of an accent, no kind of diction or anything, just very straightforward and kind of monotone. Yes. Just no flair at all. But he and that's fine. I'm not saying that as a criticism. Right. Because it was definitely a creative choice because of how creative he was with some of the other characters. Yeah. Most notably, Nick Margarian? Nick and then Georgie Pigs. Georgie Pigs, yeah. And then even the Ken Hoff character, because Billy Summers has this, he presents this dumb, his dumb self or whatever, this unintelligent persona to keep people at arm's length. Yeah. But Ken Hoff. He's underestimated. Right, exactly. Yeah. But Ken Hoff actually is dumb. And he overshares and he doesn't know how to read situations. Yeah. And he just has this kind of dumb. He's just dumb. That's the word that keeps coming to mind. Yeah. And I don't mean to sound derogatory, but he's this just kind of fly by the seat of his pants kind of idiot, basically. Yeah. And I think the story takes place in Alabama also. Okay. I was going to ask because I can't remember if they blatantly said where. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I think it's Alabama. Okay. But most notably, the Nick Majarian and Georgie Pigs voice were just like that. Kind of mafioso. Billy. Yes. It's just that's perfect. It's just and again, this is something that I love in the Stephen King audiobook world, in that it's Paul Sparks doing narration for it. I don't know if this is I don't know if they're seeking out people who are in Stephen King properties, but James Franco did The Dead Zone. Paul Sparks did Billy Summers after he was on Castle Rock, and Steven Weber did It after he was in The Shining and Desperation. I mean, one of my other favorites is Michael C. Hall
Yes.
in Pet Sematary, which he's not a Stephen King alum, to my knowledge.
That's right. He's not.
But that's one of my other top
Oh,
five
me too.
favorite.
Oh,
That
my
was
God.
So
Yep.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this might be my favorite. He was so good.
So good.
Yeah.
I want to listen to it again.
I know, right?
But I've got like 20 hours left in Under the Dome.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he does a phenomenal job. I really hope he does more narration.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was already a fan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is a strength of his for sure.
Totally.
Yeah.
And on that note, so parting thoughts for non-spoiler, and then we'll go into spoilers. Casting for Billy Summers. Who did you have in mind for Billy Summers?
I could not imagine anyone else besides Paul Sparks.
Same here.
Even though he may not necessarily fit what he was going for.
I think he's close in age.
He's close enough.
Yeah, because Billy Summers is 44 in the book. Yeah.
Okay. For again, this won't work, but for Alice, I was picturing like
19-year-old Natalie Portman. And, Jean Reno for Billy Summers.
No, I was picturing wow, this is bad. Scarlet Witch.
Oh,
Elizabeth Olsen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was picturing her.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was really about it. I didn't have any clear-cut images for anybody else. And again, it's bad, but I was picturing Paul Sparks as the Ken Hoff character too, but Paul Sparks like as his character from Boardwalk Empire.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a bit of a parallel there. He's kind of an idiot who talks a little too much in that show.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I can't even remember that character's name.
Mickey Doyle.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I was picturing him in that role too, which doesn't make any sense. But
that's hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, those are really the only people I had imagined for any kind of role.
Yeah. Honestly, I only pictured casting for Billy Summers.
Okay.
And throughout the whole book, it was Paul Sparks all the way.
Yeah.
But I did have the thought that, because like I think I told you about this off mic, but I was sitting there and I was like, Devin Sawa is a big reader, big Stephen King fan. So like I went on his timeline to see if he's talked about reading Billy Summers, and I was like, he could play Billy Summers. That would be an interesting choice.
Totally.
So I could see that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Did you mention Jake Gyllenhaal maybe playing him too?
Oh no, but Stephen King did.
Stephen King did.
Yeah,
okay. I remember you saying that another time off mic.
Yeah.
I can see that. Totally.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. In an interview with I think Rolling Stone, Stephen King said that he could see Jake Gyllenhaal playing Billy Summers.
Yeah.
I'll link to that in the show notes if I remember.
Cool.
Yeah. So get on it, Hollywood. It's interesting because this book came out a little under a month ago, or a little under a month ago, and there hasn't been news about it being optioned or picked up by anyone, which is interesting to me because I remember like The Institute was optioned like the day after it was released, or like The Outsider was like, oh, Jason Bateman's like, oh, I'm getting this, like immediately. So I'm curious what the deal is.
Well, I wonder if it's just the issues with how Hollywood's reacting to the pandemic and all that. I don't know if
that whole pandemic thing is going
properties
on.
are being bought up like they were before. I don't really know.
That's a good point.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because of streaming and all that shit.
Right,
there's still so much potential for content.
Yeah, but there's probably also a lot of questions about budgeting and
right.
Putting stuff into production. Because like just today, I mean, Jackass Forever, Mission Impossible 7, and Top Gun Maverick or whatever all got pushed.
Really?
The release date like a year ahead.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think like Mission Impossible was going to come out like May, and now it's going to be October or something.
Dang.
So yeah, it's a mess. So that's a good point. I did not consider that.
Yeah.
Huh. All right. Well, do you want to go into spoilers for Billy Summers?
Yeesh.
All right. Well, we are going to play a bit of music, and then we're going to go into spoilers for Billy Summers. So stay tuned, and yeah. And spoilers on for Billy Summers. So tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this was a very tightly written thriller.
Yeah.
And I want to start with spoilers. Let's talk about let's go with the introduction of Alice as a character. How did you feel about her introduction? How did you, were you caught off guard? Because it comes very suddenly.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you feel about it? And let's talk about the introduction of Alice.
I was definitely caught off guard, and I was actually a little resistant to it at first because I thought, as careful as Billy is, it didn't make a lot of sense that he would get involved with this, I guess. I would have thought that he would just, I don't know. I was almost sitting there thinking like he should just kind of ignore this situation because...
Well, he does address that, though.
Right. If he had just ignored it, cops would have come knocking at his door like, hey, did you see anything? And, oh, you're that Billy Summers guy. You're under arrest. Fuck.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I just feel like he just could have bolted. Just kind of could have gotten out of there, found another safe house or something. But in the long run, I do think it made sense. And also from a character standpoint, I think he had just spent months exploring a whole new part of his personality. And he's obviously inching towards, the idea of retiring from his assassin career,
right?
If that's even a thing. And really just adapting an entire new persona. And I think he has sort of a negative opinion of himself. He's like, I'm a bad person, I have these set of morals or a code where I talk about dispensing of bad people, but I'm a bad person myself. And I think that has him sort of thinking that he needs to start doing more good deeds, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I think that kind of influences his action as well. I think especially the two neighbor kids who he became so close with, really, I think that kind of messed with his head. Like, especially like he hung onto that drawing from the girl. That I think all that stuff, just from a character standpoint, was bouncing around the back of his mind and was just kind of influencing him in that moment to, I need to do the right thing here. This is who I'm going to be moving forward. And I think I don't have an issue with him doing what he did, but from right at the beginning, I was like, oh, he needs to just get the fuck out of there.
Right.
And he should know better. But then again, the confluence of events, it makes sense for his character. Yeah.
And what I found interesting about that is it's relatively subtle, I think. I mean, it starts out like a lot of Stephen King things. It starts out with a kind of log line archetype kind of thing. Like, oh, hitman doing one last job, things go awry. And he develops it into something a little more unique and a little more Stephen King. In the introduction of Alice, I feel like you're right that it is part of it is Billy atoning for his sins and atoning for him being a bad guy and trying to get this new persona up and running. And all that's well and good, but I love the kind of subtlety to that because it's not like it's spelled out all that often to us throughout the book. It's something that he's reacting to things. And when he rescues her and she comes to and they're talking and everything, I love just the very eggshell kind of conversation that they have because it's so complicated, it's so complex, it's so unsure, and there's so many questions and everything. And I just love the delicacy of their first encounter and then the bond as it grows. But I also think that I was also surprised, I should say, by how it subverted my expectations with I was like, oh, so he's going to go kill her rapists and that's going to be a bulk of action here. But he doesn't. He just teaches them a lesson. And how did you feel about that?
It was a little rough, but not too gruesome or anything.
Yeah.
I didn't really have an issue with. I don't really have much of an opinion on it.
Okay.
I kind of thought maybe he was gonna kill him too, but I think it was going along this thread of him sort of softening as a person and changing his persona. And old Billy would have definitely just killed those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But it was development, it's evolution for him, and so I liked it. Again, I thought it was compelling. It was it was shocking.
Yeah,
but again, it wasn't like grotesque or gruesome, and I think there's plenty of people who would read that and agree with what he did, or like, you know, it's an eye for an eye kind of thing. And I think that's, you know, some people that's a controversial concept, but defensible, I guess is how I'll put it. So
yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I think he even uses that phrase, an eye for an eye type.
I think
thing
so
in the book. Yeah,
and that's it's interesting. I had some conflict with it just because it was such an interesting experience for me, because I was reading it and I was like, oh, okay, he's going to go kill these people. And I'm like, I'm all for it. Like, fuck, they deserve to die. Like, these people deserve to die in this book. And then he's like she tells him, like, don't kill them. And then he's like, don't worry, I won't. And I'm like, wait, so what's he going to do? And then like, I remember, I said this on Patreon at the $2 level, but I remember like when I got to that part and he is like going to their apartment, I ran and got some donuts, and like I went into the donut shop and got some donuts, and then came out, and like I'm thinking as I'm walking out, I'm like, oh yeah, so he is like, this is him showing that he's a good guy. Like, this is him, like, he really is a good guy at heart, because he is going to go and dole out punishment to people who deserve punishment because of what they did to Alice. And like, they deserve that. And then he gets into their apartment. And first of all, I just love the casualness that he invokes, like, Trumpism into it. Because obviously everyone knows that he's anti-Trump, as any sensible person would be. And obviously my politics fall in line with that as well. And I just love like, he says something to one of them, like, the book references, like, he's taking away some of the MAGA swagger that this guy has.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's such a repeated instance through the book of the people that he is encountering, the bad people that he is either doling out punishment for or killing. They have that disconnect where they don't feel shame. They don't feel like any type of, like they don't believe that they are due this reaction, even though they are responsible for horrific acts and everything. And it's something that is just so, so, it's so in line with my viewpoints on certain things that I just love that he included that in it.
Yeah.
But then the sodomy thing, that kind of, I feel like that was too far.
Okay.
And yeah, it is eye for an eye and everything, but I just felt like, I don't know. It just didn't really sit well with me. It didn't feel, I don't know. It just felt a little, maybe not, I don't know if I'd say too far, but it just felt, I wouldn't even say it felt like, disproportionate, because it was proportionate. But it just felt like I don't know. I don't know. I had some mixed feelings about it.
Okay.
It's weird, because I was just like, he should have just fucking killed him.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I had some conflicting thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess I do too. I didn't think about it as much, I guess. It's kind of a short part of it.
Yeah.
Like, he just kind of mentions it offhand. So he was like, so I shoved this mixer up his ass. And
right.
It's only like a few sentences of the book, but yeah, I mean, I didn't have a huge problem with it or anything. It does seem a little intense.
Yeah.
I guess he could have just beat the shit out of him or something, you know, but I guess it's probably going to stick with him a little longer, you know.
True.
But yeah, I'm not sure how to feel about it either.
Yeah, I think for me, it was just that I had just, like, within the 15 minutes before that scene happened, I was just thinking, like, yeah, Billy's a really good guy. And
right.
like, that kind of subverted that or turned that around, because I don't know, I I keep thinking, and I said this on Patreon, and also I'm going to avoid spoilers for a movie that came out last year, but there was this vengeance-fueled movie, and in that vengeance-fueled movie, the character is doling out vengeance. Like she's a character who's like seeking out predators and everything, and like the big finale of it, she is threatening to do an eye for an eye thing and rape a person, a man who has committed rape. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine about that when the movie came out, and his stance was like, was that her whole vendetta is on men doing abhorrent and non-consensual things to women and their bodies and everything. And her solution is to do the same non-consensual thing to a man who is guilty of that, sure, but it's kind of a tricky moral thing. And I think that was in my head when the sodomy scene came up in Billy Summers.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know.
That's fair. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. It's a fair comparison.
Yeah. When I eventually reread this, I'll probably cheer it on, I guess. I don't know. Who knows? But that was an interesting avenue for the book to take. And, it was just an interesting, it was an interesting experience for me listening to it, because I was just I'm like all bloodlust, like, oh yes, fucking destroy these people. And then then I'm like, well, I mean, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's, you're still a good guy, Billy. So I don't know. That's something I'll probably have to ruminate on and think about, for a while more.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and talk about the, I'm going to kind of break it up into a couple different sections, but the, assault on Nick's compound, which I was so sure that I was like, oh, this is going to be the finale. This is going to be the big thing. And I'm like,
right.
I still have 9 hours left.
Yeah.
So, and then we'll talk about, God, what was the character's name? Clark, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about all that stuff. But, Nick's compound stuff, that was just, that felt like the kind of quintessential, kind of hitman infiltrating kind of story. And I was all for it. I was interested in it.
Totally. It worked in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. How'd you feel about, is it Margie?
Yeah.
Fucking Margie.
Fucking Margie. Yeah. It, I guess I didn't tie much significance to it. I was curious as to why he was spending so much time on it, and this, what would normally be a very brief 20-second interaction for this character in this moment. It was kind of weird, and I thought it was a little bit out of place, but obviously the significance of it rears its ugly head later on in the book.
Right.
But I mean, overall, the whole assault on his, on Nick's compound was pretty entertaining and pretty cool. It wasn't, it felt pretty grounded, because this is, it sort of had the formula of being like a big action movie type thing where a single guy assaults a whole house and shoots up all these dudes and leaves a stack of bodies behind. It kind of has that premise to it, but it felt pretty realistic because, it's just a handful of people and he doesn't go on some killing rampage. Right. And he leaves some people alive.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
Really only kills who he has to. Does he kill anybody?
Yeah. Yes, he killed...
He kills the dude in the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, God, what was his name?
Was that Dana?
Dana, yeah. He kills Dana, and then he... does he kill the accountant, or... No,
I think he does because he was reaching for a gun or something like that.
I think so, but also I think I don't think that was the accountant, because I think the accountant comes into play later to get the money from, to him.
He killed one of the other guys, I think. I think it was two people.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But he leaves Nick alive, which I found surprising.
Me too.
Yeah. And he came into play later because he got his money and Marge got her money, but to no avail.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that whole sequence was really interesting. And again, this brisk pace of a story is just really satisfying to me in terms of just how quick it is.
Yeah.
And then he learns the truth about the hit. We're not gonna go into intimate detail about it, but basically they hired him to hit the hitman who hit the media conglomerate's son, because the media conglomerate's son knew information about the media conglomerate guy. And it's basically, pedophilia, powerful man pedophilia kind of thing.
Right.
Which I found to be disturbing, and sadly it feels like there's a moment where they talk about how Clerk requested a minor to rape because he wanted to know what it felt like and what it was like.
Right.
And that idea is so disturbing and so just fucked up.
Yep.
And it feels so truthful to that level of untouchable power that a person can possess. And it's just to have that disconnect, that lack of humanity, that lack of moral and lack of, awareness of any consequence, in order to just do that. Like the broken moral compass of the powerful is the name of my autobiography, but it's also, it's also really, it's really, really well written in this book in a very disturbing manner.
It very much reminded me of the movie 8mm.
Oh yeah. I haven't seen that in so long.
Yeah. Yeah. Which not to spoil that movie, but definitely check that movie out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To slightly spoil, it's not a spoiler, I guess, but I will just briefly say that the other movie that this story reminded me of was Road to Perdition.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah, the hitman with a young accomplice along the way trying to shit goes south.
Right.
Really good movie. I love that movie.
Definitely.
Yeah. So the hit on Clerk, that whole thing, it subverts and it surprises in the fact that they get into the house to kill him and everything. And like, he's a fucking old man with a cane and he can barely move. And I love this part. And like, I love that Alice is the one that kills him or that shoots him.
Yeah.
And that, in my estimation, that is my reservations about the Alice character throughout the book was that she was going to be underdeveloped, which I knew wouldn't be the case with King, but I still had that fear that she would be underdeveloped in the sense that she is a victim of a heinous crime. And then I was afraid that she was just going to be a character that's dependent on a man, Billy Summers, to rectify that pain and trauma. But in the sense that she shoots Clerk and is still able to retain her capacity, compassion, and innocence to an extent at the end of the book, is like her regaining her power and her having this powerful moment where she takes out evil in a sense.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a nice bit of justice for her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, how'd you feel about all of that? And the sudden appearance of Marge?
I thought it was all pretty, a nice fluid story, but it felt a little rushed.
Yeah.
It just happened quickly. It wasn't necessarily like bad writing or anything. It just happened really fast. And I really liked the plan though, because it required some uncomfortable stuff, I think Bucky and Billy were uncomfortable putting Alice in that situation, but she was so gung-ho that she wanted to do it and they felt uncomfortable about it. But so that dynamic was interesting to explore, I think. And it, like you said, it resulted in her a moment of power for her.
Yeah.
And some comeuppance for another character. And a bit of street justice.
Yeah.
So it was ultimately a really good thing, at least in that regard. But yeah, I thought it was, there were some disturbing levels to it, but especially the whole just the depravity of it, that like Georgie Pigs and then the middle woman they used, and then
Madam or whatever,
right, and then the security guys who worked for a clerk. Everyone was just so nonchalant about statutory rape, and this dude just having sex with a kid.
Yeah,
and it just the security guy being like, "Oh, look into the camera and rub your tongue over your lips and lift up your skirt and stuff." I was like, it's one thing if it was clerk saying those things, but it was like again, it was through the intermediary,
someone on his payroll,
right? It's just like how can you? I don't know, and that's the thing. Like that in the real world, the disturbing underbelly of the real world involves people like that.
Exactly,
middlemen for the rich people who do this this gross shit. And it's
absolutely
to put a face to it, or to see it explored in a piece of fiction like this was just disturbing, but effective.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
and a slight correction, I think, but just to get it out here, it technically, like in the book, it's not statutory rape; it's just out and out child
just rape.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, good point.
But that just, like you said, the kind of gross underbelly of powerful people in powerful positions is just it's disturbing, it's disgusting.
Yeah. Then Marge, like, again, I think it was a little kind of a bit of a too pretty of a bow to put on it, I guess.
Because we get no inclination that she is even anywhere in the periphery of the story at that point.
Right.
She's been sent money. She's living out with her son, taking care of him, and then suddenly she's in New York or wherever.
Right.
That just felt rushed is probably the best way to put it. Yeah.
But I mean, it does make fluid sense. Did she there was, you can follow the path of how she got there, right?
The logic works.
It's not entirely out of left field or anything.
Right.
It's just a little convenient. Yeah,
and to the book's credit, it is calling back something that in the timeline of the book is fairly recent. So it's not like this is something that he did in the first few pages and then went on his journey of self-discovery and everything, and then, this is coming back to bite him. It's like, this is something that happened like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Or at that point, I think it was probably months, because they had a whole thing.
That's right.
But in terms of pages, very soon, very recent.
Yeah. I did, kind of before all that, the whole Sidewinder thing.
Yes, let's talk about that.
They meet up with Billy and or Bucky and everything.
Yeah.
I really like that part of the story because it's, what I liked about it is we had some time with Billy and Alice together.
Yeah.
And they're exploring their relationship, and there's feelings developing between them and stuff like that. And I think it was such a good idea to have another set of eyes on it, and have the, like the wisdom of the kind of the old sidekick of Bucky, kind of bringing it down to earth for Billy and stuff like that.
And him explaining to him
that she loves him.
That she loves him and will do anything for him.
Yeah.
And like the power that he wields, like the power that he wields in contrast to the powerful men that he works for or kills.
Yeah. And, credit to Billy and credit to Stephen King. I think it's kind of I guess it's, it's usually a trope that the hero guy hooks up with the girl.
That's what I was so concerned about.
Me too.
The book. Yeah.
And I don't think it made sense for the book, and I would have been disappointed if they had. And, credit to Billy that there's more than one opportunity where he could have done
where
had sex with her, basically, right? And he chose not. And I don't even think it's the fact. I don't think he was unattracted to her. I think he had some attraction to her.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
mentioned how she's a pretty girl and all that stuff, but he's very aware of what she's been through, their relationship dynamic, and their age difference and all that stuff. And he takes it into account and like, look, this is not the best thing for either of us. This would be a totally impulsive thing, and it would probably do damage to her. And he's like, it's just not worth it. And but I also love the fact that the first time he kind of, I don't want to say he rejects her, but he just declines her offer.
Right.
Because she wasn't really enthusiastic about it. She just loves him and wants him to feel good and feel better and everything.
She says, I can't make love to you, but I can help you.
Help you, right. Yeah. And I kind of respect the fact that that was grounded, because right afterwards he goes in the bathroom and jerks off. Right. Because it's like, he's still a man.
Yeah.
Like he's not,
the book
he's not gay.
Yeah. The book has some really, that like, it's kind of a Stephen King trope that has like the trope of a character's sudden boner. Because Stephen King writes a lot about men just having boners.
Right.
And I do like that. What I like about that line, that the two characters just kind of are in the vicinity of, not necessarily dancing on, but they are in the vicinity of this line in their relationship. And I love the delicacy of that, like on both Alice's part and Billy's part, like her saying that, her giving that caveat to that offer, saying like, I can't make love to you, but I can, help you out. And then like also with Billy, like gently rejecting her and telling her, no, we can't do that. Like later when she offers, and everything, it's a really interesting and delicate dynamic that I found really endearing and captivating between the two characters. Yeah, and that part really reminded me of Leon the Professional. Oh yeah, there's this underlying sexual tension in that movie, and it's an extra disturbing layer in that movie because Natalie Portman was 12, right? And that's a very disturbing part of that movie, but it's a tightrope that's walked incredibly delicately in that movie. Yeah. And it made me think of that a lot. That's one part that jumped out. I haven't seen Leon the Professional in a very long time. Yeah, it was like one of my favorite movies for a while, and I still hold it in high regard, but I haven't watched it in so many years. Interesting. But yeah, I loved the sexual tension and how they both reacted to it, and kind of the how do I want to phrase it? Not the gentlemanness. The chivalry. The chivalry. There you go. The chivalry of Billy and how he keeps a cool head through it. The nice guy trademark. Right. He's not just some impulsive dude who throws his dick and whatever, I appreciated that because it's not typically what you'd get in a story like this. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Talking about Sidewinder, and how'd you feel about the Overlook stuff? Yeah, I felt like there was too much of it. I can understand that, sure. Just because there's not even a tinge of supernatural anything in this whole book, and then that just kind of shows up, and it's like my biggest problem was the picture of the hedge animals like moving and shit like that. Yeah, I was like, why does this need to be in the story? That seemed a bit self-indulgent. Yeah, honestly, it could have just. I prefer Easter eggs to be more subtle. And like if they would have just met up in Sidewinder, and that's the only mention of The Shining or the Overlook or anything, like just let it be Sidewinder. That's it, and don't mention the Overlook. Nothing else. For fans, that would have been a nice little Easter egg or a little reference. But then like she goes and sees the ruins, and she's like, oh, I could have sworn I saw the hotel from, and it's like, could you really? Like, I don't know. I just didn't think it was necessary. Yeah, and I totally get that. I do think I did like the looking over the ruins and everything. Yeah. I do agree in retrospect that the picture of the hedge animals was like I said, too self-indulgent, too much. Yeah. It's also something that I have this working theory about Stephen King's recent books, and maybe this dates back to all of his books since he started having adaptations made of his books, but I kind of feel like there's this correlation between like a recent movie or TV adaptation of his work that he is in any case either involved with or has seen, and how some of that influence goes into some of his current writing. So like I could imagine, and this is pure conjecture, I can imagine him being in the world of Mike Flanagan's Dr. Sleep. Maybe he was a producer on it. I'm sure, I don't know how much input he had on it or how many conversations he had. But like I could see him like living in that Dr. Sleep world and being like, oh, now I'm writing the story about a hitman. Well, let's put him in Sidewinder. Let's it's fresh in my mind.
Right.
Similar with like The Institute. I kind of feel like, and this is a looser thing, but like the Dark Tower movie came out and there's the whole Algol Ciento part with the kids being abducted and being harvested to break the beams and everything, and then he writes a story about these kids that have supernatural abilities that are taken away and taken to a facility. So I kind of wonder how much of his own work in other media is influencing his writing. So I don't know.
Right, totally.
Yeah. So to kind of wind down, I have one other thing I want to talk about, and that is the narrative structure, the writing in the last couple of chapters. I was so taken with the way that it bamboozled us. I was surprised, just the way that we have a chapter that is detailing their drive back to Sidewinder with Billy having a gunshot wound, and it is written as his writing, him writing his autobiography, his writing, and then we get to the end of that, and then it's like, okay, well, Bucky is now asking Alice, okay, what really happened? Because she had written that ending.
Right.
How did you feel about that whole idea, that switcheroo, and how did it affect you?
I really liked it all because I think, again, a pretty little bow just could have been wrapped on this, and it would have been unsatisfactory, I guess.
Yeah.
Or unsatisfying. I think before as they were planning out the whole Roger Clark thing, I was like, Billy's going to die. Like, if he survives this, I don't think I'm going to like it. And then we get that, the part where, ostensibly the part that Alice wrote, where he survives and then they part ways and he takes off into the sunset or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. And I thought it was a little goofy, and then I wasn't real happy with it. And then we get this, what really happened part that I really liked that. Cause again, I thought it was going to be the whole Marge, Deus Ex Machina is kind of, I have issues with that, but the fact that he ends up dying, I thought was the most realistic and poignant way to end the story. And I love the fact that it was woven into this concept of, kind of passing on his story to Alice and securing a future for Alice. And I think he was okay with the outcome of what happened because it meant that she was going to have a future and stuff like that. And and I think she, she was, I think it allowed her to kind of process it as well. I ended up ultimately liking the ending a lot. I think it's a pretty creative ending. Yeah. And it's well done. I didn't have any issues with it. I mean, I was sitting there, and again, we were getting the first immediate parts after they kill Roger Clark, and he gets shot and all that, and I'm like, he survives and they part ways, and he leaves with a note and all that, and I'm like, there's still like 45 minutes left in this, so I don't think this is the real ending, so I'm okay now.
Interesting.
And then thankfully we got all the better stuff at the end there. And I really liked that. That's
really interesting, because as I was going through the book, I was reading it along with, for the most part, I was reading it along with listening to the audiobook. And I had, because I was doing those Patreon recordings, I had checked, and I was like, okay, there are 24 chapters. And then I knew that this last batch of chapters is the last 5 chapters is the last episode on Patreon that I did. And so I knew in my head, okay, there are 24 chapters. I'm on chapter 23. This is the first person writing of Billy, quote unquote, Billy writing his final pages of his story. And I'm like in my head, I'm like, oh, okay, wow. So this is I had the same kind of reaction. I was like, so they patched him up, like he's okay. Like that just seems really anticlimactic. And then by the end of it, I was like, wait, what if she wrote that? And like I was kind of a little bit ahead of King on that. And then the final chapter was just absolutely stunning to me.
Great. Yeah.
When she's speaking to him at his grave and she tells him that she's going to go to college and be a writer, I was on the verge of tears. I just thought that was such a beautiful, beautiful sentiment.
Me too. I got choked up more than once.
Yeah.
In the end. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because I loved these characters.
Me too.
And I love the idea of it closing on the kind of central conflict with the characters as spoken by Bucky is that Alice is in love with Billy and will follow him no matter what. And Billy is a bad guy who he only kills bad guys, and that doesn't make him a good guy because he is a bad guy. And so he has this impressionable young woman who feels like she is in his debt, that is going to follow him no matter what, into danger, into potentially dying. And like that's the resolution of the conflict, is not that she dies for him, but that he dies. And then he has just unknowingly passed on this passion for writing and this passion for storytelling, and like this new life that he's gifted to Alice is just overwhelmingly beautiful in the way it's written out in that final chapter.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I loved it.
Yeah, it was good. Very good.
So I think we've talked this out. It's getting late. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But final question, does this make, and with the caveat that you do need to revise your top 19, but in its current state, does this make your top 19?
I think it does. And initially I was thinking no, but having thought about it more and then talking it out and everything, I think it does. Like I'm trying to think of other stuff that I know is on my top 19 that I think this could bump out or
nice. Well, if you go to towerjunkiespod.com/top19, you'll, or maybe our top 19.
Yeah,
I don't know which one. Like,
but I think it'd be somewhere in the teens, the low teens, for sure. But I think it's pretty. I think it would solidly be in there. I'm pretty sure I can find something on that list that I liked less than this. I think.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you don't have a number now.
I don't have a number now, but again, I've been kicking that can down the road lately, but.
Okay. Well, we will circle back when you do, when you finally catch up to that can, or whatever the rest of that metaphor is.
Right.
But this, I had such a blast reading Billy Summers, and I had such a blast reviewing it in pieces on Patreon. Again, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. $2 gets you access to that and a bunch of other stuff. But, I put it on my top 19. It bumped Mr. Mercedes. And Mr. Mercedes was number 19. And then I put Billy Summers at number 12.
Nice.
Yes. So Billy Summers is right underneath Under the Dome and just above Christine. And number 14 is Dr. Sleep, which I feel like should be a bit higher. So eventually I'll revisit all of these books at some point and obsess over it.
Nice.
But yeah, so that is our episode on Billy Summers. Guys, let us know what you thought of Billy Summers, and let us know. You can reach us on all the platforms and everything. Email me, matt@obsessiveviewer.com. Facebook, Twitter, all that. Once again, check out The Year of Underrated Stephen King. I will be doing a guest spot soon. And next week on the podcast, we will hopefully be having what I'm dubbing a quartet episode, in which we are going to be chatting with Kim C. from The Year of Underrated Stephen King. We are going to be talking about the short stories from, I think they're both from Everything's Eventual. All That You Love Will Be Carried Away, and LT's Theory of Pets. And we're going to just kind of talk about Stephen King as well in general. It's going to be a blast. Check that out next time. In the meantime, check out her show, The Year of Underrated Stephen King. And I'm going to start playing us out. And any parting thoughts, Tiny, for Tower Junkies this episode?
Nope, no parting thoughts.
All right, great. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
And now, here's a short clip from our Patreon exclusive RSS feed. To hear the full clip and more exclusive Patreon content, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer and become a patron at the minimum rate of $1 per month. Thank you and enjoy. It's like I said, it's really brutal and horrific. Like, the idea of it is really horrific. Like, I mean, and it is, there's so much brutality to it that it is so... I don't know. It's just, it's really, like I said, it's a big pivot for the book, and it's not anything that I'm criticizing by any stretch. I think it's very engaging and very interesting, and like I said, horrific. But, it's just, it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense. And the way that King writes her grogginess that night and the way that Paul Sparks performs it in the audiobook, that adds a whole new level of just haunting to it, because it's sad, it's tragic, it's horrifying, it's abhorrent, and just the way that
Tower Junkies is edited and produced by Matt Hurt and presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. For a full archive of our episodes, go to towerjunkiespod.com/archive. You can also like our Facebook page at facebook.com/towerjunkiespod and follow us on Twitter at towerjunkiespod. If you enjoy the show, please take a couple minutes to leave us a rating and a quick review on Apple Podcasts. This is the easiest way to support what we do, and all it costs is just a little bit of your time. If you'd like to donate to the podcast, you can make a PayPal donation at towerjunkiespod.com/donate, or support us on Patreon for recurring donations and access to commentary tracks and B-roll audio recorded exclusively for patrons at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. Every donation goes toward paying the fees to keep the podcast running and is greatly appreciated. For official Obsessive Viewer merch, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more, visit our TeePublic store. You can find a link to the store in the show notes of this episode and at obsessiveviewer.com/donate. Or you can simply search for Obsessive Viewer at teepublic.com. For information about our annual live event showcasing short horror films from local filmmakers, check out shocktoberinirvington.com. And for an archive of all our events, as well as news about potential future events, head over to obsessiveviewer.com/live. For more podcast content, you can find our flagship movie and TV review and discussion show, The Obsessive Viewer Podcast, at obsessiveviewer.com and on Twitter at obsessiveviewer. You can also find Anthology, Matt's solo podcast covering The Twilight Zone, and other classic and contemporary science fiction anthology TV shows at anthologypod.com and OV Anthology Pod on Twitter. And finally, check out The Secular Perspective, Tiny's side project podcast, which tackles current events and life's big questions from the perspective of secular hosts Chad and Amanda at thesecularperspective.com. Music for the podcast is provided with permission from Fingers T on YouTube. Additional bumper music is provided courtesy of As Good As It Gets, which can be found at facebook.com/asgoodasitgetsband. Thank you so much for listening. Long days and pleasant nights.
Kitty!